We have video of that as well. That'll go up a bit down the line. But we celebrated 40 years of Eat 'em and Smile yesterday with Billy. Had some great stories, some great insights, great memories about making the record 40 years ago and touring the record and making the video.
And now, SiriusXM's Faction Talk gives you your daily dose of hard rock and metal conversation.
I listen every day.
Trunk Nation, with the most comprehensive and biggest voice in the world of hard rock and metal, Eddie Trunk.
I love him and he's awesome.
Whoever said that is too kind. Anyway, thank you. What a nice way to start the show there. That little sentiment in that drop. Hey, how you guys doing? It is midweek. It's a Wednesday. It is noon in the West. It is 3 o'clock in the East, and it is time for Trunk Nation. If it is indeed that time when you are listening to the show live. So we welcome your involvement at 844-686-5863. 844-686-5863. Live daily, noon to 2 Pacific, 3 to 5 Eastern, anytime, live or on demand, using the SiriusXM app. As usual, social media, at Eddie Trunk for the show. You can go to Trunk Nation SXM. You'll find those show accounts on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You'll find my personal X, Instagram, Facebook page, and also the YouTube channel. I put up video just now, actually, minutes ago. It might still be uploading. The Michael Anthony interview, which I didn't realize was never the video I never got a chance to put up. And also the Stuart Copeland interview and the Sully Erna interview, which, again, forgot about those, that we had them on video and did not get them up for you to check out. So if you'd like to see those interviews, the video is now available at Eddie Trunk on YouTube. Of course, the audio is and has been on the SiriusXM app on demand. But some new stuff up on the YouTube channel as of minutes ago. A few additional interviews. You can check out the archive of some of the past stuff up there as well if you'd like to see some of the guests that we've had on recently. And, of course, we just had Amy Lee of Evanescence and her bass player Emma on the other day. That was on Monday. We do have video of that. That'll go up a little bit further down the line. We always like to keep the stuff exclusive to the SiriusXM subscribers for a little bit, whether it be on the app or, of course, here live on the air. And then it will eventually go over to podcasts and video and all that good stuff as well. So that's kind of how we roll things out. Great conversation yesterday with Billy Sheehan. If you missed that, it is now there on the app for you to check out. We have video of that as well. That'll go up a bit down the line. But we celebrated 40 years of Eat 'em and Smile yesterday with Billy. Had some great stories, some great insights, great memories about making the record 40 years ago and touring the record and making the videos. All of that, again, is on the app if you missed it from yesterday's show. Today, another bass player, David Ellefson, of course, an original and former member now of Megadeth, and he will join us. David also always has a bunch of projects going on, and we'll spend some time, not a ton of time, but we just had him on from the Monsters of Rock cruise. But we'll spend some time with him today, getting a little catch up on a few different projects he has going. So we'll visit with him shortly. That's at 3:30 Eastern time. We will have time for your calls after that as well. So make sure, as always, to get you involved in the program. And tomorrow, a lot of time for you on the phones, a lot of free-for-all time tomorrow. And tomorrow we will have Carl Bell, the guitarist and founding member of the band Fuel, on the show. And we will world premiere a brand new song, the first in a long time from Fuel, called Want It. Like that band a lot. Known Carl for a long time. Known some of the guys in Fuel for a real long time and always been a fan. New song is killer. We'll play it for you for the first time anywhere to close tomorrow's show with an interview with Carl before we air the song. Full disclosure, the interview was pre-recorded. I did it yesterday because Carl is traveling tomorrow and was unable to call in live, but we'll have it all ready to go. The entire show is live tomorrow with the exception of that final segment where we'll play the song for you to close the show and give you a brief conversation with Carl. So for the most part, a free-for-all Thursday, and then leading into the interview and the song premiere. So that's what's going on as far as today and tomorrow here on Trunk Nation. And as always, we love having you involved and always welcome your calls at 844-686-5863. Before we get to Ellefson today, a few notes from me and a bit of news. Not a whole lot, but a few things to chew on. Probably the biggest news would be what happened last night in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and that is the return of Bon Jovi, who checked out of performing live for a while because of very well-documented vocal issues. There was an entire documentary done on the band and their history, but the thread throughout that documentary, if you saw it on Hulu, was John struggling with his voice and trying to find a way to get it back. He went through a lot. He went through vocal surgery. He went through a bunch of training to try to get the ability to sing back. And he was very clear in that documentary and in the few interviews he's done since that he was not going to return to the stage if he could not be at a decent level again. So last night, all eyes and all ears were on Madison Square Garden, where Bon Jovi kicked off a run of, I think, somewhere around 9 shows, all at Madison Square Garden. It's interesting. He is not touring. He is doing a residency, basically, at the Garden. And then he will go over to do a few shows in England where, believe it or not, I mean, Bon Jovi is actually even probably bigger in England and throughout Europe, but especially England. Maybe even bigger than here in America. Even during the down periods in America, Bon Jovi were a huge act in that part of the world. So he is doing some scattered shows there, but in the U.S., the only place he's playing is New York City. Now, I would suspect, just taking a guess here, that if he gets through these shows that have been announced without any big setbacks, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a tour announced. Like a U.S. tour going across the country sort of deal. Or at least more than just playing New York City. But we'll see because we have to see how this all goes. Now, when Bon Jovi toured the last time, before he shut it down, he had massive vocal issues. And if you saw or heard some of that last tour, then, you would wonder why he didn't shut it down way sooner, because it was brutal. Like he was basically coming out and whispering the vocal. You almost felt bad for him. How somebody in his camp didn't shut him down, I don't know. Because as he revealed in the documentary, he didn't even realize how bad he was until finally his wife came up to him after one of his shows then and said, "Hey, you got to stop." And look, the audience out there, it's Bon Jovi. I mean, John comes out and flashes the smile and does his little dance, and every housewife in the audience is going to scream and look past any, will be incredibly forgiving. But this got to the point of being really, really bad. So he did shut it down. He did go through a hell of a lot to get his voice back. They did do this whole documentary, which chronicled a lot of that. So needless to say, all of this that I'm telling you built into last night, seeing what the heck the guy could still do and how he now sounds. He did do a couple private shows. He did do a show in his bar in Nashville that did have public there, but he made people lock up the phone, so we never really saw or heard anything from that. Last night at the Garden, certainly did not lock up the phones, because I saw a ton of video. I had friends that were there, and from the minute he came out on stage, if there were 20,000 people there, 19,000 of them were holding up their phones. Which again, to me, supports the case that I wish more bands did the phone lockup. Because it's ridiculous. I mean, the whole place just looking at the concert through their phone. God knows what they paid for tickets. Anyway, but as a byproduct of thousands and thousands of people of shooting video instead of actually taking in the show through their own eyes, there is a ton of video and samples out there of what went on last night at the Garden. And again, I always say you got to be real careful how much weight you put in stuff that you see and hear on YouTube. Because sometimes it can be not entirely representative of what things really sounded like. Other times, honestly, it can be. I mean, sometimes it can be. I mean, I'd say for the most part, it's a pretty good barometer. But there are times and instances where even I've been at a show and I've taken some video. And then I look back at it and I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound as good, especially the vocals don't sound as good as they sounded physically being there. It's kind of odd. Sometimes that happens. But for the most part, I think it's a pretty good barometer. And from what I saw of last night, and again, I was not physically there, so definitely keep that in mind. But from what I saw of last night, it was way better than the last time he played live. From what I just told you about before he shut it down, that last tour was brutal. And this was light years better. And by the way, because you always got to put this caveat in there, it sucks that we do, but we do. It seemed to be pretty much, it certainly seemed to be live and not a track or AI or auto-tune or any of that. It certainly seemed to be legit. So always props for that. And again, it's astonishing that you've got to put that asterisk in when you're talking about a live show. But I've only been on this soapbox for about 15 years now, and the world is seeing where it's going, so I wasn't crazy. Enjoy your computers, because half the people are playing to computers. But again, we'll leave that on the side. Clearly, it did not appear that John was. And again, it seemed like way better than what he had done before the surgery. Did it sound like 1986? Of course not. How could it? That's 40 years ago. With very, 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 very few exceptions, hardly anybody sounds like they did or looks like they did 40 years ago. But was it acceptable? Was it good? From what was it worth listening to and potentially going to if you're considering it? From the little sample size I had, yeah, sure. I mean, it didn't seem to look or sound like anything to say, oh my God, he's got to shut it down. It was terrible. But if you're going there expecting to hear, again, the lead vocal exactly like you do on these records you listen to every day, then you're living on another planet. That's completely unrealistic. Also, don't forget, Richie Sambora is not there and has not been there for a long time. And Richie was a huge part of the vocal in Bon Jovi. He even sang lead vocal on a couple songs in the live set. That being said, you know, a long time ago, John Bon Jovi has turned Bon Jovi into basically his own E Street Band. I mean, by his own admission, he always wanted to be Springsteen. And he's basically, followed that model. Adding additional musicians, percussion, extra guitar. So, he's got extra people up there on the riser. The core of the band is him, Tico, and David as the original guys. And Phil X obviously carries a ton of weight as the lead guitar player. And also Phil has a great voice, so he's helping out there with those harmonies and all of that. So Phil X jumps from doing that in Triumph right into doing it in Bon Jovi. And we had Phil on the show a couple months ago talking about this and talking about how this was coming up. And if you did not hear that, go hear it on the SiriusXM app because it's interesting insights. I mean, this guy is, went from Triumph right into Bon Jovi, and he is doing heavy lifting in both bands. But it speaks to his talent as a singer and a guitar player to be able to do that, certainly. It's impressive. But anyway, from what I saw, it was fine. And if he can maintain this level or maybe even get better as he gets more comfortable, he could have another few good years ahead of him. We'll see. I mean, of course, it could go one way or the other. It could also go off a cliff, which, you don't hope for. I know John from way, way back in the day, growing up in New Jersey, of course. And, I'm rooting for him. I mean, I've always rooted for him. I've always been a fan. I've always wanted, he's always, he's worked extremely hard to get this back. And look, you can say, guy's got all the money in the world. He's literally one of the wealthiest rock artists in the world. I mean, I think he's close to a billionaire. Oh, why does he do it? Well, in this case, sure, everybody likes to make money no matter how much they have. But in this case, I think this was a lot to do with him showing he could do it. That personal goal of getting back out there and playing those songs and getting in front of an audience again. And he seemed to, really have a moment there to really take that in because he probably thought he wasn't sure if he'd ever have a moment like that again on stage in a prestigious arena with 15, 20,000 screaming people singing every word to his songs. So I was happy for him, and I thought he didn't do anything to embarrass himself. I hope it goes the right way for him and not off the cliff. We'll continue to watch it. Again, there's another 9-10 shows coming up at Madison Square Garden. Joel just told me 9 total. And then there is Ireland, 3 shows at Wembley Stadium in England, and then 1 in Scotland. And that's all that's on the table now. Whether he'll do more, again, I think it's going to depend upon how he feels, how he's doing when all of this is done. And let's hope he gets through the Garden stuff. I mean, there's still 8 more shows at Madison Square Garden coming up. Set list wise, it was interesting. He opened with a cover of the Beatles with a little help from my friends. Which, of course, the opening line is, "What would you do if I sang out of tune?" So I'm sure there was a little messaging in there. Kind of funny, right? And there was this video of him going with the band down an elevator that made it look like they walked out on the stage, coming out of this backstage. That's a move. We've seen a bunch of bands do that. Kiss has been doing that for a long time. They make it look like, they put up on the camera like you're in the dressing room as they're walking down the hallway, getting ready to walk out to the stage to play for you. In reality, that stuff is all pre-recorded. And they do it at every show, and it's the same backstage hallway. Just part of the intro package. little smoke and mirrors there, but many bands have done that. So he did something similar, like playing off of an elevator dropping and talking to the audience a little bit and then coming out and doing his thing. So we'll keep an eye on that and see where it goes going forward. My thing with Bon Jovi has never been about anything except for the fact that, from a performance standpoint, from a new music production standpoint, it has all gotten tremendously muted. To me, him losing a little off of his voice is not the issue. Now, him not being able to sing at all, like that last tour, is an issue. But to me, my issue, if I have one, is just in the fact that he is way more reserved as a performer. And it's not a high energy show anymore. Where if you look back on the old stuff in the 80s and early 90s, I mean, the guy was one of the best frontmen out there, running around through the lighting truss, didn't stop moving, jumping. It was unbelievable energy. And that played into the delivery of the music, which had way more energy in it too. About 20 years ago, I hate to say this, it's almost funny, it almost coincided with him cutting his hair. He became a guy that just basically comes out there and stands there and sings, which I will never understand, because I do understand everybody gets older, but he's not that old and he's in great physical shape. Like, he could easily be that guy again if he wanted to. He just doesn't want to do it. I've talked to him about it. Doesn't have it in him anymore. But the other interesting thing about that is his hero, Springsteen, who has got easily 10, 12 years on him, is still that guy. He is still jumping off pianos in his 70s. So that's always been the kind of head-scratching thing for me. It went from being this high-energy, at times hard rock show into way more of a reserved sort of delivery. But, John said to me once, and I'll never forget it, on the air, last time he was on this show, when I kind of brought this up to him, he said, Ed, I was never going to be one of these guys that is in my 60s painting their fingernails black and dyeing my hair. Because just not me. I'm not going to do it. And I respect that. And I relate to it because I was never a guy that had the uniform even in my younger years. So to each their own, But just the outwardly performance of it, the energy, the movement, the activity, the more aggressive delivery to the songs, it's all changed in that regard in a big way. But I'm happy he got it back. I'm happy that he seems, by all accounts, had a pretty good first show. And hey, if you guys are listening and we have somebody that was there at the Garden last night and you want to give us a little report, I'm happy to hear that. We'll be able to take some calls a little later on in the show. Again, 844-686-5863 is the number. Other news beyond that, which of course is really the thing that is certainly the biggest news today. A few other random notes here. In our latest No Band Ever Ends, we can file Elton John in that category. I mentioned Elton a day or two ago on the show because it was revealed that he is going to be a hologram here in Vegas. This has not been an official announcement, but it's been widely reported that Elton John will be a hologram, and this hologram will make its premiere in the brand new Hard Rock being built on the Strip in Vegas at the site of the old Mirage, the second Guitar Tower hotel that they have built, the other one being in the Fort Lauderdale area of Florida. I can tell you, being in Vegas, that Guitar Hotel is probably about 90% complete. It is imposing. It is massive. It is going to dominate the Strip when it lights up. I'm sure there's going to be a big ceremony when they light it for the first time. They are putting a venue in there, and one of the venues will house the Elton John hologram. But the reason why I say No Band Ever Ends is not only the hologram, is Elton John, who proclaimed his final shows 3 years ago, has announced today, I love the terminology, that he is now doing a final farewell. So forget about the farewell. Now it is the final farewell. Only a couple shows, but they're shows nonetheless, and they will be taking place in Mexico City in October. And I saw Elton John here in Vegas like a month ago at a private event that the Raiders put on, and he was great. He had a little difficulty walking out to the piano bench. He had a little help getting up and down. But once he was seated at that bench, he was Elton John. He played great. It was all real. Played piano great, sang great. So, I mean, he's still going out there gobbling up huge money on private shows. And now doing a public show with these dates in Mexico City. Will it lead to more? I would suspect it would. On a completely different note of rock music, Amon Amarth, the Swedish band, who do incredibly well. I went to see them a year or so ago, and they are currently on tour. They have a new record coming out, and today they released something you would never expect from a band that is more in the extreme metal world. They released an acoustic song. Their first acoustic song in their history. It's called Uphall, and I listened to it, and you would think, it's going to be a different kind of vocal because it's acoustic. Nope. It's acoustic, but Johan, the singer, is still doing that, death metal-y, growly vocal. Great guys. I know these guys a little bit, saw them, and, not my thing musically, although I was entertained by the show just because of the vocal, but I respect what they do, and they have done extremely well doing this, and now dipping their toe in the acoustic waters. They say the full record when it comes, is not an acoustic record. They just wanted to do something different. The latest artist to do one of the big sellouts in terms of selling their name, likeness, catalog, songs, publishing, the big money dump, which we've been reporting on for years with various artists and various companies paying hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases for the rights to an artist's catalog and entire operation. The latest person to do that is the founder of the band Foreigner, Mick Jones, who we know has been ailing for quite a while. Mick has been battling Parkinson's, and I believe it's Parkinson's or maybe Alzheimer's, I'm not sure, but he was unable to perform at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction for Foreigner. He has been pretty much out of the public eye now for a couple years, and today it was announced that the company Primary Wave has acquired his entire name, likeness, publishing, etc. The disclosure on the amount of money has not been made. Mick Jones is the primary songwriter on most of Foreigner's big songs as well. Lou Gramm involved as well, but Mick Jones has definitely been the guy that has, the architect of that band, if you will. And of course, has not performed live with the band, but sanctions them going out with no original members, as they've done for years and are still doing under his direction. So hope Mick is doing okay, and his bank account just got a lot fatter in his later years. This Accept tribute record is really some really cool stuff on here. I've mentioned this before. There's been, tribute records really got burnt out after a while. I mean, there was a tribute record for everything and everybody. And I think people really had a high level of fatigue with them at one point, just kind of checked out on them. But in recent years, there's been some real good ones. The Triumph one is really good. The one from a while ago, the Dio one, This Is Your Life, was really good. And it looks like this Accept one is going to be really good as well. It's called Teutonic Titans, comes out on September 4th. We already have that great version of Fast as a Shark out there with Kirk Hammett on guitar, Phil Anselmo on vocals. They've got major people on this. It's all to celebrate 50 years of Accept. And Wolf Hoffman of Accept is actually behind this whole thing. Another track was released today. This, a cover of the Accept classic Balls to the Wall, and it features Rex Brown of Pantera on bass, Matthias Jabs of Scorpions on guitar, and Rob Halford on vocals. So a second track from the album coming September 4th, released today, a new take on Balls to the Wall. Black Star Riders were supposed to do a co-headline tour with the band Taiketo in Europe. Today they announced they are backing out of that tour. Why do I bring this up? Well, we rarely talk about things happening outside of America because obviously it's not really relevant. We broadcast to the U.S. and Canada, so if it's not happening in those countries, I rarely deal with it as far as tour dates because for most people they're not going there that are listening to me. However, the reason why I bring this up is because I've talked about this before. It's extremely rare when an artist cancels a show or a tour and announces it's because of poor ticket sales. Most of the time, it is because of poor ticket sales. But most of the time, they will come up with some excuse to make anything but, because obviously it doesn't look good to say that. But in recent years, we've been seeing artists being pretty transparent and saying, yeah, we just didn't sell enough tickets. I know Saxon did it like a year or so ago. And and I have a lot of respect for that. And that's why I'm bringing this up. So the latest artist to say, yeah, we couldn't sell any tickets is Black Star Riders, the band that is fronted by Ricky Warwick. Now, I just saw Ricky at the Dio charity event in L.A. Ricky's lived in L.A. for years, told me he's moving back to Belfast and that, he is focused on doing Black Star Rider stuff, but also his band, The Almighty, which does very well over there. But unfortunately, and I give credit to the band for being transparent, they have pulled out of this. They said the ticket sales were just way too low and they didn't feel it was going to work. And they also announced the dates weren't coming up until September. They said they announced it this early to give fans ample notice to not be inconvenienced. So shout out to Black Star Riders for being transparent and also handling this the right way and keeping the fans in mind. I am not sure if Taiketo are still going to try to do these dates and reconfigure this, but no announcement on that just yet. And I think that kind of covers what I have today. Oh, and real quick on a non-music related topic. I watched a documentary last night that I'll give you guys a heads up on. Was really unbelievable. It's on Hulu. It's called Sky King. And we got David Ellefson waiting, so I'll get this out real quick and we'll get to David. But it's about a guy who worked at the Seattle airport, and he was on the ground crew, the guys that steer the planes into the gate, the guys that handle the baggage. So he was on the runway. He was working for a subsidiary of Alaska Airlines. I didn't hear about this story when it happened back around 2018, but this guy, who obviously was mentally losing it a little bit, basically hijacked a plane, no passengers on it. The plane was just sitting there, parked, and then he somehow jumped into the plane, took off with the plane, went on a joyride with the plane, and then, of course, crashed the plane and died. Didn't kill anyone else, didn't hit anything. He was actually shot down because he had 30 seconds of fuel left, and they had to shoot him down because he could have ran it into a house or a building or something like that. Wild story. And they've got the air traffic control audio and the way they put it together, and they talk to his friends, and they actually have security cam footage of him jumping into the plane. He's on this thing himself. And the kicker, of course, is he did not know how to fly a plane. He somehow took off, flew around in this plane, which was like a big commuter jet, turboprop. But he's up there for an hour having a joyride, and he has no idea how to land it. So he knew it was a one-way thing. I mean, it's amazing he got it up in the air. I could talk about this forever. It's wild. And somehow I don't remember that story when it first happened. So anyway, if that sounds of interest to you, Sky King on Hulu, a documentary about that. Okay, we got to take a break. David Ellefson will join us. We'll be back with him right after this. Then we'll get your calls at 844-686-5863. Be right back on Trunk Nation after this.
Now back to our deep dive on all things rock.
Woo! For rock and roll, let's keep it live.
Trunk Nation.
At the end of the day, this thing is a live event.
With Eddie Trunk.
I learned all my good stuff from him.
On SiriusXM's Faction Talk. Turn it up.
All right, we are back here on Trunk Nation on a Wednesday, talking rock with you. David Ellefson was just, hanging out, waiting to come on, and he said he's good now. He's got all his rock news and everything for the day. So, David, I could just put you on in the background if you want, and you can just kind of hang out, and then you can, get your updates, and then go on with your day.
Dude, I love it. It's perfect. I kind of get everything I need, tune in, and then I'm good for the day, right around midday,
That's it. Well, that's why if you can't listen, you got the SiriusXM app. You go there, you can listen and get your update every day. So anyway, man, last time we saw you, which wasn't that long ago that I saw you, we were on the Monsters of Rock cruise. We were at sea.
Yeah. Which is great, and it's funny because I grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and Larry Moran, the promoter, he always tells me, he goes, "You've got the voice of like this, like doing the hog report on the midday." He says it to me every time, and because Midwest guys, right? And that's what I do. Would work on the farm, come in at noon, have the noon meal, watch the farm report, just like now, listened into the Eddie Trunk Rock and Roll report. So that's what I'm saying, midday report, But yeah, Larry's great, man. The crew, I love Monsters of Rock. Jeff, Scott Soto and I have a couple of albums out, so we were on there this year. A couple years ago, I joined him for the sail away party, and then I joined the cruise. And it's our tribe, right? It's a good hang on there,
Always a fun time. Always a fun time. Yeah. So that was fun, and so we had a few minutes with you on that, of course, with Jeff, and we had, I think you, Jeff, and it was Beeler. I think the three of you guys came out.
Yep.
And at that time, you started telling me about Metal Church and that you had joined Metal Church, right? So give us the update on what's going on with that band, because of course, they were together for a while. They broke up. I think, Kurt shut it down for a while, came back into action, made new music, and now you're part of it. So tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, so Rat Pack Records, who I've made the Ellefson Soto records for these last few years. Last year, Joe O'Brien, who owns the label, he hit me up right as we were turning in the last Ellefson Soto record, and he said, "Hey, how about you play on the new Metal Church album?" I said, "Totally, absolutely, 100%. I love Kurt, such a cool guy, great riff machine, great songwriter. It's like he hasn't missed a beat, over all the years that the band has been together and then sort of defunct and back together again." So I said, send me the track. So he sent me the new songs for the album, which were pretty much written. And Todd LaTorre from Queensryche had just gotten a new singer for Metal Church named Brian Allen, who came over from Vicious Rumors and Trauma. And I think Trauma had just been out with Queensryche. That was the connection there. And I listened to it and I went, man, this is killer. So I drove over to Kurt's studio in California. This was probably late April, May of 2025, just last year. And so we sat there, me and Kurt literally sat there for a day, cut all the bass, 15 tracks. And it just was a natural fit. Sometimes it's a musical fit. Other times it's a musical fit. It's a personality fit. And it was both, So, we kind of put together a game plan, for the next several years. And so now we're in year 2. The album came out back in April 10th called Dead to Rights. We dropped a couple singles off of it called Fafo, and was the first one that we dropped back in November. We've got tour dates. We launched the band. We did one festival down in Mexico back in May, and that was basically the relaunch of the band. And so now next week we start up in New Hampshire, Derry, New Hampshire, and we got a pretty good run at pretty much a world tour. Some East Coast Canada dates, then we're over to Europe, festivals, and then we're off to. We have one Danny Wimmer Fest. We're playing Louder Than Life with Iron Maiden, and in September. And then we're over to Japan, and then we've got a run with Armored Saint called the Metal Saint Tour in November, which is a U.S. tour. And on and on it goes. And there's quite a bit of stuff now. The big summer festivals for next year in Europe are coming together. Sweden Rock, Rock Hars, all the big stuff is coming through. So yeah, the band's back up and running, and everybody's getting along, and it sounds killer, man. So that was a nice little thing to have fall in my lap.
It's interesting with Metal Church because, and I've said this on the air before, for people that remember when they first came onto the scene, and I certainly do, I mean, they were heralded and expected, and people thought they were going to be a huge band. Like, there was a lot of buzz on them. I remember, if I remember correctly, they were signed to Elektra early on, which also was Metallica's label. And I even remember in the beginning, like, there was even conversation like, which band is going to cut through first? Is it going to be Metal Church or Metallica? Like, who's going to get bigger? One of these, Metal Church could be the band. And of course, that sadly did not happen for Metal Church, and it certainly went the other way. But I could never really quite put my finger on why they didn't, get to that next level, even to the level of a Megadeth or something. They just seem to, I don't know if it was because the lineup changes or the things that happened, but they just never got to the point that, I think people had expectations for them for.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That first Metal Church album is just iconic. There's some groups that put out that first album, like Guns N' Roses and things that it just defines who they are forever. And that first Metal Church album, including the song Metal Church, is just, I mean, to me, that's the crown jewel,
Yeah.
and then a ton of great records after that. The Dark and
Yep.
Blessing in Disguise. They obviously went through several different singers. And
they had that moment. Right. They had that moment with "Watch the Children Pray," where it was like, you thought they got some MTV on that. You thought that was going to be the one, and it just didn't get him over the hump.
It bands, as you know, Eddie, there's a lot more to it than just the song. My friend Larry Mazer, who managed Megadeth for a while in the late 90s, he said, he goes, David, band success is built on two things: great songs and aggressive management. And I go to that all the time. That I look at Metallica with Q Prime. I mean, they there was no getting number two. It was number one or nothing, and you saw it happen. Queensryche had the same management. So did Def Leppard back in the 80s. So Rod Smallwood with Iron Maiden, so you see these consistencies, these artist management relationships are key for this. And I mean, I guess you could even say Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker,
or a band, or a band we both love. If you really want to go back, look at Kiss. I mean, if it wasn't for Bill Aucoin, who at one point even financed one of their tours on his credit card, I mean, to have that kind of belief, and then Bill had that leverage because he was producing a TV show that had music in it, so he was able to do. But he didn't give up on them after a couple records that didn't do well. He just kept pounding and pounding. And I mean, you could make the case that Kiss might not be Kiss without the consistency of Bill Aucoin.
I think
you're right.
100%. That, I mean, Peter Grant with Led Zeppelin. We as fans, right? We see all the bright lights and the glory and we think, oh man, it just happens, but it doesn't, and on the inside, I mean, a lot of these, look, I've been in, one band in particular, with Megadeth. I mean, that was a 20-year overnight success, and just about the time, you think you're at the top of the mountain, there's another mountain right behind it. So I remember we were on Rust in Peace, and I was just sort of getting into a sober lifestyle, and my guitar tech was making more money than me. I think I was making $500 a week, and my guitar tech was making $750 a week, right? And my friend Greg, who I grew up with, he messages me one day. He goes, man, or he called me or something, and he said, man, you really made it. We're out on tour with Judas Priest, with Painkiller, and playing arenas, and it looked big, of course. But I was going, dude, you have no idea. I'm literally making $500 a week out here trying to rebuild my life. And, because we put everything that we had into the band. And, you read these, Geddy Lee book is just one of the greatest books, rock and roll books ever written, I think. And every band is the same, man. I mean, Van Halen, you read the Alex Van Halen book, and as big as these bands are, when guys like you and me, Eddie, were fans growing up, going to concerts and seeing them, it was make or break. They're right there on that point. So, and I think, Metal Church is one of those. They had great songs, they had great members in the band, but sometimes one little management misstep, a label. Another thing that happens, and I saw it a lot of my years with Capitol Records, a new president comes in, and if you're not making the label money, they drop you. Fortunately for me with Megadeth, we always made the money, so they kept us, even though they didn't really know what to do with us. So they kind of left us to our own devices. But so yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this whole thing that determine whether you're going to really be successful in the long run or not. But fortunately for Metal Church, they have the songs, and I think that's the thing that has sustained them through it all. The songs and Kurt Vanderhoof. I mean, he's the man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad they're back out there doing it, and it's cool that you're a part of it. And the other thing that you have going on, and I know that a press release hit today that there's going to be a 7-inch single, and that is Kings of Thrash, and that is you and Jeff Young at its core. But I know it's expanded out some on these new tracks. So tell everybody the latest, what's going on with that project.
Yeah, so we started Kings of Thrash. Jeff and I, Jeff and I, we'd been in touch over the years. I got him involved in the Megadeth Behind the Music, the VH1 special that we did back in 2001. So we'd been in touch a bit, but we reconnected over the making of the Nick Menza documentary when we did the documentary of his life. That was 2022, I guess. And we got the studio. We wrote a few tunes together. We didn't have a singer, but so they weren't really completed songs. But and then right behind that, we Chuck Wright from Quiet Riot hosts the Ultimate Jam Night at the Whiskey in Hollywood, and they were doing a tribute to the Big Four. And so Jeff called me. He said, "Hey, you want to fly out and jam a couple of old school Megadeth songs?" I said, "Yeah." So we did. We played Mary Jane, In My Darkest Hour, Peace Sells. Chaz Leon happened to be our singer, so that's how he became the singer of Kings of Thrash. Fred Aching was playing with the Bullet Boys at that time, but he had played on that event as well, and that's what formed the band. I mean, there's kind of the origin story of it. So we've Chuck Bernal at Artists Worldwide, who is your agent as well. He came on board, and he's booked a whole world tour for us these last couple of years. So Cleopatra has been, Brian and Cleopatra has just been a great friend, and he's always stepped up, and he put out our Best of the West live DVD that we did, which was only our fourth show that we had played on our first little tour that we did, I guess in 2022, when we played at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And so he put out two singles for us, one called Lockdown, and then this other one called Bullets Ready that we just put out a couple of months ago. And so we issued them both on a 7-inch limited, little 50 copies, just an autographed and great artwork, old school thrash kind of limited edition vinyl.
And on this, you've got Chris Poland is guesting on it, right? And Zetro?
Yep. Yeah, we got Zetro on there. Zetro had been out of Exodus, and I'm friends with Zed. I mean, I try to stay friends with everybody, and you know how it is. People come and go in bands, right? But I hit Zed, and so he put a vocal on it. Gabriel Connor was from a band called Red Devil Vortex, who was fantastic on it. So, yeah, it's the four of us plus 3 guests.
Yeah, so that's Kings of Thrash. So that's out, and I'm assuming the 7-inch single is available. You just said limited to 50 copies, but I'm assuming that if people want the to hear it, it's going to be online, usual streaming outlets. People can hear it that way as well, right?
Exactly, all the streaming outlets. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So, and you're going to you got live shows with that too coming up more?
We do. We kind of have, now that Metal Church is ramping up, I needed to give a bit of a runway, to because we had been working so hard with Kings of Thrash here these last few years. So our last dates, we've got 5 shows in Norway coming up at the end of kind of mid-August. We'll do the Metal Church US and Europe stuff. And then I'll just jump right over onto the Kings of Thrash train. And we've got 5 shows in Norway. And then we've got 8 shows across the UK, Ireland, and Northern Ireland, Belfast. Ricky Warwick's home, like you just said previously. So, which is great because we've had and Jeff and I played together in Megadeth. That's where we filmed the Anarchy in the UK video. It was in the UK up at Leeds, the festival up there in 1987. We performed in Dublin and up in Belfast together. So it's fun for me and Jeff to kind of go back down memory lane as well when we go and play these places over there, because that was our origin story of where we had performed together.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned the documentary that you worked on late Megadeth drummer Nick Menza, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, and I learned a lot about Nick's life in that as well. For people who did not see that when it came out initially a few years ago, is there a place they can see it? Is it on a platform now that people can go watch it?
It is. It actually is on, I believe it's on Hulu. Is that the one? I think that's the outlet that has, you can go on or is it Tubi? I guess it's Tubi, right? That it is available online. Yes, is the answer. And there are some physical DVD copies available. And I don't know if they're only available through the distributor now. I guess you can kind of Google anything, right, and find it. So they are available in the DVD one, but it is available online, which I'm really stoked about. And in fact, Nick's dad, Don Menza, is this very esteemed woodwind player, saxophone player. He played the Pink Panther theme. That's Nick's dad playing that. Played with Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and played in Woody Herman's band. All these jazz legends. He wrote, he arranged, he worked with the dads of Toto. So Don and I have become good friends, and we actually sat him down in front of a camera and documented his life. He's 90 years old. He's still in pretty good health. But I thought, now that we've got Nick's story, which includes Don Menza in there, of course, because it's his father, I wanted to get even Don's story, because, there's just kind of this really just awesome Menza musical history, And Nick always said, he goes, if my dad had played rock and roll, I would have played jazz. But because my dad played jazz, I had to play rock and roll. It's kind of that rebelling against your dad,
Hey, and one last thing. When we go through all your various projects, because you always have a lot going on, there is is there anything planned for Metal Allegiance? I mean, I know you guys do the NAMM stuff every year, but you have anything else cooking with that?
We have a NAMM thing coming up, and I should say January around NAMM. We're not officially sanctioned by NAMM as a NAMM event, but yeah, we're always at the House of Blues, Anaheim. Yeah. And it's that Thursday, which is that first day of NAMM. And we're really, we're the metal event. So yeah, we've got something cooking for this year. As soon as we play, we pretty much put the date on the calendar for next year. So we've got something pretty cool cooking this year that will probably be, let's see, what are we in July? So we'll be announcing that here sometime in the months coming up. So yeah, be looking for that. It should be pretty cool, actually.
And the final thing I wanted to ask you about is, your former band, Megadeth, is doing what they're saying is a farewell. I don't ever believe any band is ever doing a farewell. I just talked about Elton John adding dates on his now final farewell. Right. I did a farewell tour with Deep Purple in Mexico 10 years ago. They just released a record and are touring. So I have this thing where I say no band ever ends, and I don't believe anyone's ever ending, really. They'll become a hologram at the very least, right?
But that's the new thing now, right? Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. But hypothetically, if they really do a final show somewhere, do you hold out any hope that not even just yourself, but people like Jeff Young, Chris Poland, people like that. Like, I think for a lot of fans, they would love to see the surviving members of the history of that band up there again. For you personally, do you hold out any hope that you will have that opportunity? Do you want that opportunity before Megadeth calls it?
I never closed that door to that thing. I mean, because you and I, we've talked about this a lot over the years, and even in the last few years since I've not been performing in the band. And I'm with you. I mean, when Dave put the group back together, when he said he wanted to work again, in 2004, I said the same thing because there was this talk of should we do the Rust in Peace reunion, and that didn't happen, of course. And then that was even revisited again in 2015, right before 2014, I guess. Which, when that didn't happen, then we, basically rebuilt the group and put out the Dystopia album. I said to Dave in 2004, which was the first time trying to put it back together. As a band, which really kind of turned out to be more of a so I always kind of look at these things when I'm not in Megadeth. I always look at it like it's Dave's solo band. That's just how I look at it, and not that it's good, bad, or otherwise. It's just different to me. It just is a different feel than the Megadeth of me and of Ellefson and Mustaine together. So for me, I said even then, why don't we bring Jeff Young, Chris Poland, other surviving members, Nick Menza, even Marty. Why don't we make it be something bigger? And what hit me on it is at that time, Asia and Yes were doing that to huge success. They were doing kind of bringing both bands together, touring, because it was a very different world. The young bands like Lamb of God and Killswitch Engage, these guys were, kind of owning the landscape, and thrash metal was, I guess you could say, was making a comeback, so to speak, in the 2000s. But I think now for sure, before you put something down of that size, especially with that legacy that had all these different members who were so key, and every lineup and every album of that lineup had its own fans. And we know this, probably you and me, Eddie, as Kiss fans, right? There's 70s Kiss, there's 80s Kiss, there's these different versions, and they each get different fan bases, that come into that. And so for me, yeah, if I were calling the shots, absolutely. But then again, that's me, and I get along with everybody. So who knows how that'll play out?
Yeah, and you're friends with James Lomenzo, right?
I am. Yeah. I have no ill will toward anybody who's performing with Dave right now. Look, they're certainly capable musicians. They seem like they're decent guy. I mean, look, me and Kiko brought Dirk in 2016, and he's still there. As Chris Adler was going back to Lamb of God, we needed a full-time drummer because Chris Adler was not able to do both gigs. So, Chris gave us Dirk's number. We reached out to Dirk. Did the audition, he got in the band, and so me and Kiko made that happen. So, Dirk's worthy of the gig, of course. I've always sung Lomenzo's praises. I'm surprised he can play that kind of music because that's not a background that he comes from, right, that I was familiar with. But he's certainly done a very good job, and we can be friendly and friends with each other, about that kind of stuff, so I don't have any ill will. But like I said, to me it just sounds different when it's me and Dave. That is a version of Megadeth. It's the OG version, from the 80s through the 90s, and then revisited again in 2010 through 2021. There's just a different sound to it, so it is what it is. It carries on, and it's fine with me. I mean, I still get paid and I get royalties, so keep working. It's good by me.
I had Phil Mogg from UFO on a month or so ago. Another band that I love, and a band that I'm on him all the time. I'm like, hey man, you can't let UFO go end the way it ended, because he had a heart attack and they had to cancel dates and whatever. I go, get the surviving members, one show, play in London, shoot it, lights out in London, get Michael, get Andy Parker. I do stuff with Andy. Andy can still play. I'm like, get Neil Carter, do a tribute to Pete Way, like let's do, shoot it, record it, and he's just like, no. And I go, what did you think about Michael? Because Michael did a whole tour playing nothing but UFO songs. And he goes, well, I said something like, I love it. He goes, I was going to my mailbox every day looking for the royalty checks, though. He goes, because he's playing the songs, he wrote. So I'm like, yeah, there's that aspect of it, too. There is something to be said for sitting home and still getting the mailbox money.
Well, those of us that are lucky to have that, it is a good thing. Now, with that said, look, I'm not one to just retire and sit at home. I go play music because I'm going to play music till the day I die. I mean, to me, to quit is to die. So I keep playing. Again, it's playing. It's not working. It's playing. You get to perform. You get to play. So for me, it's that satisfaction. I've been playing music since bass guitar since I was 11 years old, and that was my passion. Largely driven by Kiss and Sweet and BTO and all these bands that were around at that time. So I still have that same drive. I wear rock T-shirts. You and me sit here and bullshit talking about rock and roll, and my email box is full of rock and roll emails, and it's just what I do. I travel the world. Yeah. Last week I was in Europe doing some metal church business, caught a few shows while I was there, saw the Sex Pistols. I mean, and I've known Steve, for years, since Steve Jones played on the So Far So Good So What album. And, he was kind of one of the first sober guys. There's that movement, that sort of rock against drugs. And, that wasn't where I was at in my life at that time. But, him and Vince Neil and these guys, I remember, even John Bon Jovi seeing these, they would do these.
Rad. Wasn't it called Rad? Rockers Against Drugs?
Yeah, right. And it was a thing. It was on MTV. It was like a campaign, right? And then a few years later, I got clean. So I'd stayed in touch with Steve a bit over the years, and we'd see each other around. And so it was great to reconnect with him and Glenn Matlock. I had met him a few years back at a bass guitar event, the London Bass Guitar Show.
I just had him on. I just had him on the show like a month ago because he did a documentary. I was a teenage Sex Pistol. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And, I saw this group, Die Toten Hosen, over in Dusseldorf last week. And, big group. They started out as a punk band opening for the Ramones and stuff. And now they're playing stadiums. And their drummer, Vom, he and I were chatting because he was just such a great showman. And he goes, yeah. I said, yeah, I'm going to go out and see the Sex Pistols tomorrow. And he goes, oh, man, me and Glenn Matlock made a record together. So I'm thinking, here's Glenn Matlock, because Sid Vicious was the famous guy in the Sex Pistols, right? After Glenn had stepped aside, I guess probably because he didn't want to do the touring or something. But, Glenn was a real musical centerpiece of the Sex Pistols with the songwriting, the arranging, and has had this whole other musical career, doing all these cool things that he's done. So, those guys, and they sound killer, man. God, they sound good, and they're heavy, and it was just awesome. And they played with the Damned. So I'm like thinking, how cool is this to see? I mean, when I was a teenager, to see the Damned and the Sex Pistols on the same bill, I mean, that was a English dream come true. So I like going out to shows. I see things that I've done. I see new things that they're doing. I'm always paying. I'm a student of rock and roll, and I will be till the day I die. I watch shows. I watch for timing. I watch for lighting things and audio things. I'm just, interactions of musicians to their audiences. So I love it. Doesn't matter what language they sing it or speak it. I love it, man. It's, I love what rock and roll does for people. And since I'm in that game myself, to me, I'm just always a student of it.
Yeah, well, that's one thing we both share. We're definitely lifers for it, and you're a resilient guy, always bouncing back with whatever's going on, and always out there hustling and doing whatever you feel like doing in terms of being creative. And I think it's great, man. You've done a lot of cool stuff, and glad you're still out there doing it. So you can check out David Ellefson. Kings of Thrash, we mentioned. The new songs are out, and that's with Jeff Young. Chris Poland, part of that as well. Zetro from Exodus, part of that as well. And Also want to mention Metal Church, which of course people can see David playing with and touring, and the new record is out as well. Listen, Bud, always great to visit with you. Best to you and the family, and stay cool there in Arizona. At least you're not in Europe. You got air conditioning in Arizona, so you're good.
We do AC good over here. We do. I know, Eddie. That's in America. We do air conditioning really well over here, man. It's something you take for granted when you don't have it, So,
well, you were saying in Europe they don't have it. In a lot of the venues they don't have it. You're hearing from people over there dying playing these shows.
Yeah, especially Americans. As I talk to the Steel Panther guys, they're like, "Oh my God, this sucks." Playing venues. So yeah, you take it for granted. But you and me live in deserts, so we know how to do it. So yeah,
You're in Arizona. I'm in Vegas. It's not an option here. It's mandatory.
Exactly.
That stuff goes down. They got to come fix it in 20 minutes. You're not gonna make it long if you don't. So it's a mandatory thing here for sure. But yeah, man. So listen, stay cool. Have a great rest of the summer, and I'm sure I'll see you out there somewhere.
Yeah, see you. Hey, by the way, I'll probably over at the Gene Simmons Legends event over in Vegas at the end of September. In fact, I'm seeing Gene this week, Gene and Corey Taylor at the Mad Monster event here in Phoenix, in Glendale, Arizona. So anyway, send
them both my best. Corey lives up the street from me here in Vegas. I don't see him. He never leaves his house, but except for if it's something like that. But I see him from time to time. He's come over here a couple times, but I haven't talked to him in a bit. So send him my best. And yes, the Gene thing, as you mentioned, that's coming up in September, and that is at the Westgate, formerly the old Hilton here in Vegas. Tons of rock artists. Gene's doing it. Geezer's doing it. You're doing it. And we've been advertising it here on the show as well. So good stuff there also. All right, buddy. Well, listen, and real quick, you want to mention this. You said you're doing one with Gene in Arizona this weekend in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's the Mad Monster Party, which is a great horror convention brand. I've done it before. And yeah, Corey and Gene will be there. They just brought Gene in as a headliner. A lot of great horror actors as well. So a guy from Hellraiser, just, all the greats. It's a super cool event. So I'll be there. That's this Friday through Sunday. So yeah, if you're anywhere in the Phoenix area, come on out and let's rock and roll and hang out.
All right, man. Well, listen, if you get to Vegas, hit me up, and I'll do the same if I get your way. Not that either of us are home very much all the time, but you never know. So,
never know.
Yeah. Take care, all right? Stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Eddie. See you, man. Bye.
All right, thank you. There's David Ellefson, everybody. Catching up with him. Good to visit with him, as always. Appreciate it. And if you missed anything from that conversation, again, as usual, everything is on the SiriusXM app. All right. Let's throw to a break. When we come back from the break, we'll take the rest of the show with you on the phones. Little open phones, free-for-all action. 844-686-5863 is the number. We got some people holding. We got some people wanting to get through. Talked about it at the top in the news. There's a few different things going on. Probably the biggest story would have been the return of Bon Jovi last night at Madison Square Garden in New York. Any comments on that? If you happen to have been at opening night, you want to chime in on it, that's cool as well. Again, 844-686-5863. We'll come back and do the last 45 or so with you guys with anything you want after this. Attention rock fans and Kiss Army, start packing for Vegas because now's your chance to meet Gene Simmons and other rock icons at the Legends of Rock Expo. It's going down September 25th through the 27th at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino. More than 30 rock legends will be hanging out all in one place, from Gene Simmons and 3 other members of Kiss to Stuart Copeland of The Police, who was on the show recently, Geezer Butler of Black Sabbath, who's been on the show in the past, Dave Davies of the Kinks, Jerry Sheff from Elvis's TCB band, and as you just heard minutes ago, David Ellefson will be there as well. It's your exclusive backstage pass to autographs, photo ops, live panels, collectibles, and merch, plus 11 live bands performing throughout the weekend. The Legends of Rock Expo is open to the public, and tickets are on sale now at legendsofrockexpo.com, or you can purchase tickets at the door. Get ready to rock with Gene Simmons and friends at the Legends of Rock Expo, September 25 through 27 at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino.
Back to Trunk Nation, your home for all things rock and all things Eddie Trunk.
Scott in Rochester wants to talk about Greta Van Fleet.
Hey, Eddie, honored to talk to you.
Go ahead, John. What do you got today?
I can assure you that the live music scene is alive and well down here in New Orleans.
What do you got?
How do you compare the music today versus what was being made in the 90s, 80s, and 70s?
A lot of people are connecting with it and saying they really dig it as well.
Trunk Nation, Sirius XM, Faction Talk.
All right, time to go over to the phones, get you guys involved in the show. And we just wrapped up minutes ago with David Ellefson, formerly of Megadeth. Covered a few different things with him. He's got a few different things going on, as always. The Kings of Thrash stuff, now playing in Metal Church as well. As you just heard David say, and it kind of ties in on a smaller level to what I was talking about with Bon Jovi. There are these guys that are just, I mean, for Bon Jovi, it's not about money, clearly, because the guy's beyond wealthy. But just getting back out there and being able to perform and do his thing again was a big moment for him last night, no doubt, at Madison Square Garden. For a guy like Ellefson, sure, still wants to make a living, still needs to make some money, no doubt. But you just heard it. I mean, that guy is a lifer, man. He has been doing this for as long as I have on a different level as a performer, as a musician, but he is a lifer. He just goes all over, just jumps around different bands, different projects. He'll think nothing of running over to Europe and catching a band or playing a show with somebody. So there's people that are just wired like that, and then there's people that aren't. It's people that it's just not what they want to do. It's just not how they get older, they change, they just don't want to do it anymore. Guy that comes up constantly with me with that is Vito Bratta. He would be in the other category. Did his thing, made a few records in the late 80s, had success, checked out, not into it, not a lifer. His bandmate in White Lion, Mike Tramp, clearly is a lifer. He'll go out there and play with an acoustic guitar in a coffee house. He'll go out there and go jump on stage or do whatever he's got to do to just keep it going. He never stopped. And ironically, bringing up White Lion as a comparison, the bass player from White Lion has been now the bass player in Megadeth on 2 separate occasions in James Lomenzo. Kind of touched on that with Ellefson a little while ago. And Ellefson's right. It's crazy to think that, James Lomenzo, who does not come from a thrash background by any stretch, would be the bass player in Megadeth now on 2 different occasions, currently and then the previous time as well when Ellefson was out of the band. So certainly versatility playing into that equation. All right, let's see what's on your mind today. We'll go the rest of the way with you on the phones. We do have open lines. If you want to jump in here, 844-686-5863 is our phone number. 844-686-5863. Jim in Pittsburgh has been waiting, so let's get to him first. Hey, Jim, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Eddie. What's going on? July 5th was the Ozzy anniversary. Did you mention that at all?
Back to the beginning?
During the week? Yeah, it was a one-year anniversary. Oh,
yes, I did talk about that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Not in detail, but I mentioned that when I came back on the air, which was on the Monday, that the previous day, the day before, was the 1-year anniversary of that event. Yeah.
Okay. Before I comment about the Yano documentary, I went back to Long Island to visit my kids, and we went to the movies. We saw Obsession. It's a pretty good horror movie if you're into horror movies. And as I was at the movie theater, I noticed this poster, and it said, Wham, 10 Days in China, coming out like the end of July. Have you heard anything about this in movie theaters?
like a documentary on the pop band
I don't know.
Wham?
Yeah, there was a poster. It said Wham! 10 Days in China. I guess it's a documentary.
No.
It's coming out like the end of July. Excuse me.
No, I mean, there was that documentary on Wham that came out just on the band and on George Michael and all that. But I didn't know that there was another one, or I've not heard anything about that at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I watched the Paul Diano documentary. The thing is, when he did his Diano, I guess his solo band, did you care about his band with Diano and his other solo projects?
Honestly, no. I didn't really know much about it. I didn't really listen to much of that stuff. He had Battle Zone. He had stuff under his own name.
Right.
When he was out of Iron Maiden, I kind of checked out on it. A lot of those records were not really well known or really marketed well in America, so I really don't know that stuff.
Right. And I was waiting for the operation scene, and I was thinking about you. That really didn't get me. You know what got to me? His feet. It was just like really, really bad, and I don't know. I kind of turned my stomach. I mean, as far as the knee operation, that really didn't bother me. But I thought it was a very good documentary, and I'm waiting for the Iron Maiden. It's you can rent it for $20. I'm not going to pay $20. I'm going to wait till, like you say, wait a while. Wait it out. It'll be on for free.
Yeah, the Maiden doc, Jim, is totally different. I thought it was real good as well. Burning Ambition, and thanks, Jim, for the call. I thought Burning Ambition, the Maiden doc, was really good. I really did. Some people didn't like it. I think some people didn't like it because they felt like, they were bummed out that you didn't see the guys talking. It was all done kind of in voiceover, but honestly, that didn't bother me. And there was enough footage of them in there that was archival, that was good. I mean, I don't think most people who are big Maiden fans didn't really learn anything, but overall, I thought it was good. There are rumors out there that Steve Harris did not like the documentary. I don't know if that's true or not. I think some of that's being fueled by the fact that Steve was the one member of Iron Maiden that did not turn up at the premiere in England, which they thought was kind of sending a bit of a message, especially since he's the founder of the band. Also, when Steve was on this show recently from the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I brought it up, he kind of said, well, it wasn't made by us. It's not our thing. It just felt like he would, felt a little distanced from it. But I thought it was good. I liked it. I had no problem with it. The Paul Diano doc, and of course it's interesting. We're at a time where you've got two different documentaries out there now on Iron Maiden. The Paul Diano doc is totally different than the Maiden doc in that it just centers on Diano and tells his story and his battle with his health, which ultimately, of course, sadly he died. But it's very raw. You could tell it was done on a much more of a shoestring budget by one person following Paul for years with a camera, getting his story, documenting it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not good. You can have something that's way more low budget in its production, and it could be better than something that costs 10 times the money. It depends how well you capture the story. And I thought the story and Paul's issues and everything were super well documented there, and obviously very unfortunate. It's tough to watch at certain points because it is very raw and very real. And if you've not seen the Paul Diano documentary, you want to hear more about it. Again, the guy who made the film, Wes Orshowski, was on this show promoting it just a few weeks ago. And that is on the app if you want to have a listen and hear Wes talk about making that doc. Okay, so according to Joel and Jim in Pittsburgh, you are correct. It's called 0 Days in China, Joel?
No, if you see the next message, I corrected that. It's
okay.
It's called Wham! 10 Days in China, and it's set to arrive at the end of this month in theaters.
showcases restored footage that reveals the untold story of Wham! July 28th in theaters. Focuses on their 1985 visit to China. So I don't, the 10th. So I don't know why, like there was already a documentary on George Michael and Wham! I know that says that this is focusing on a trip to China. It doesn't feel like a theater thing to me, but I could be wrong. I mean, and it could be one of those things one day in theaters and then it's on Hulu the next day or whatever too. But hey, even though it's on Wham, I'll check it out. I don't care. I'll watch any documentary. As proven by the fact that the one I told you about at the top of the show, if you weren't listening at the start of the show, again, you can rewind, listen on the app, but I came across this documentary. I think in that Rogan Tommy Lee episode it was mentioned, because they mentioned it, I went and found it last night. It's on Hulu. But again, a wild story that I just didn't hear about when it happened back in 2018. I don't know how I didn't see any of the news coverage. But this guy working on the ground crew at Seattle Airport essentially hijacks a plane with nobody in it. He was not looking to hurt anybody. He wasn't looking to run it into a building or anything, thank God. But, he was clearly troubled. And he decided he wanted to take a joyride. And somehow, the most incredible thing is, he successfully took off with the plane out of a major airport, Seattle, and basically went for a joyride. And in this documentary, they've got the air traffic controller exchanges with him. And he's just like, yeah, he's very calm. He's like, yeah, do you think I can do a barrel roll with this thing? And they're like, well, that's not really the type of plane for that. And he's like, well, I want to try to do it. Well, I'm going to hold on a second. I'm going to go in the back and get myself a water. Because there was nobody else in the plane. So he walks out of the cockpit, gets a water. It's insane. And of course, they interview his mother and the people, his friends and stuff, who obviously are understandably distraught over this, because basically the guy went on a suicide mission to just kill himself, but have one last trip just on a plane. But the incredible thing is he didn't know how to fly a plane, and he somehow took it off and maintained the altitude. I think he said he read a little bit about it online, but he had no plan or no understanding at all on how to land a plane. And they want him to try to land it on water where it can't hurt anybody else. They want to try to talk him through it. And he's not interested. He's like, I got 5 minutes of fuel left. And then they had no choice but to shoot him down, because he could have potentially, and he was going to crash anyway. They wanted to make sure he crashed over an area that wasn't going to fall on someone's house or people or a populated area. And he does this barrel roll in a commuter plane, in a regular plane. It was a turboprop, but I've been on those. They're like, hold 100 people or whatever. And he gets within 10 feet and flips the plane and climbs back up again. The guy never flew a plane in his life. Wild. It's called Sky King, Panic in the Sky. Yeah, it's happened in 2018. It's on Hulu. Anyway, back to the calls. Here's Chris in South Carolina. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Ed. I'm heading up to Charlotte Saturday to see AC/DC, and since it's been Bass Player Week on the Ed Trunk Show, I saw got me thinking about seeing Jason Newsted. So I was looking to see if he was playing anywhere around soon, and it looks like he's playing in Charlotte Saturday night at the same time. You think that's gonna hurt his attendance?
Good question. It certainly wouldn't help. I mean, what Jason is doing with this current thing, this Chop House band, is definitely different. It's definitely, it's not really a metal thing so much, but yeah, it definitely wouldn't help because there's definitely common audience there. But on the other end of it, I mean, you know, the AC/DC thing is a way bigger show, and there might be people that just like they want to spend that kind of money and they don't want to be in a big crowd like that. They'd rather go to a smaller place and see a more intimate show. So he might still do okay, but it's certainly not going to help.
That's too bad. I was hoping it'd be a success for him. I'd love to have him come around more often.
Yeah, I had him on. He was on this show recently talking about these dates. But it's hard to say. Now, has AC/DC ever played in that market before? Do you know? Did they play on the last run?
No, they didn't come anywhere near the last time. I think the closest was Nashville.
Okay, so you did not see them yet?
No, this would be the first time.
Okay, so all right, well, good. Well, I'm glad you're going to have a chance to see them, and hopefully they deliver for you. And I don't know. That's, you know, when people route tours, they hope to not run into something major like that, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And hopefully he'll have enough people come out there to support him, and, you know, up against AC/DC. That's not an easy spot, obviously.
Nah, hopefully it'll be cool. It's going to be hot. Hope Angus will be okay.
Well, Angus, but you got to worry about Brian too. I mean, Brian's nearly 80. He's the one you really got to worry about singing that stuff on a stadium stage. That's a rough spot for him.
Yeah. Hopefully
Thank you, Chris.
Cool down. Thank you.
Let us know how it goes. Couple things on AC/DC. Well, a couple things on heat. Now that we're in the heart of the summer here, and Ellefson was talking about it earlier, that he just came from Europe, and you see people having problems over there with the heat because in a lot of places in Europe, they do not have air conditioning in the venues. So the acts over there are really struggling playing these places without AC. But with AC/DC playing outdoor shows in the summer here, with a singer that's nearly 80 years old doing what he's doing on a stadium stage, that is a tough spot. And AC/DC are playing in some markets they did not play last year, but they are also repeating some cities they played last year, including here in Vegas. So it'll be interesting with the same exact opening act, the Pretty Reckless. So it'll be interesting to see how they do and how they maintain tickets, especially in markets that they just played a year ago. Because again, these shows are not cheap, and there's a lot of options out there for people. Now, in a market like South Carolina, that's why I asked them if they played there or not last year. People didn't have a chance to see them there. So obviously there would be, I would think, even more interest. Not that there would never not be interest in AC/DC, but you see what I'm saying. If you're in a city where you're like, yeah, I just spent money, I saw him a year ago, same show, same bill, maybe I'll go to something else this year. If you're in South Carolina, you didn't have that chance last year, so it's a little bit different. Last thing on AC/DC, a couple people sent me emails about this. One listener sent me a screen grab, and you got to be careful with screen grabs. You got to be careful with what look like ads, photos, even text, posts, screen grabs from social media. You got to be so careful, you guys, because again, as I'm sure you're figuring out, there is so much fake stuff out there that looks incredibly real. But the listener who sent me this said it came from the AC/DC mailing list. And it was a pitch to buy tickets, and it said, get ready to power up for the last time. Now, as we know, even though the Power Up AC/DC record came out a number of years ago now, they are still playing off of that for this touring last year and this year. They're still branding the touring the Power Up Tour. The listener who sent me the email was wondering, does this mean, is this their kind of nod that this is a farewell and that they're ending? Well, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it as maybe it's the end of the campaign for the Power Up album. But look, if we're living in a real world here, you gotta think this is it for AC/DC. They may not announce it. They may not play the farewell card. But I mean, how much more do you think Brian Johnson could possibly do at this point in his life? It is amazing what he's doing now. So I don't know how to take that, but it could be a subtle little nod to a farewell, or it could be, yeah, this is it for the Power Up campaign, and now we're going to come back next year and play Back in Black in its entirety. I don't know. Because again, we see every band eventually reconstitute, I don't know. But going back to the fake stuff online, that you got to be careful. Every day I'm getting it and I'm seeing it, and it's so hard to navigate. And there's so many scams out there. Somebody sent me something. It's like, oh, your insurance is expired. Hit this link. Insurance didn't expire. I mean, I'm sure you guys know this by now, but you got to be, even with text messages, you got to be so careful. I got an email the other day from somebody I know, an invite to something. Didn't say what the party was. You know those e-invites? Hit this for all the information. You hit it, you go, here, download this to get the invite. I said, whoa, stop right there. Contacted the person. I go, did you send me an invite for something? They go, no, what are you talking about? Boom. If I would have hit that download, who knows what would have happened. You got to be so careful. It is crazy times out there. And then just the fake ads, Led Zeppelin reunion tour, all that, just nonsense. Here is Keith joining us in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. What's going on today?
Not much. I just wanted to call and pick your brain a little bit because me and my girlfriend are heading to Vegas on Friday for the first time I've been since 1999 when I was 21. And we're going to see Kenny Chesney at the Sphere because I've been dragging her around to Sammy Hagar and all the rock bands I love. So she likes country. So we're going to go see him at the Sphere. Have you heard anything about that show?
I have not. I am not well versed in the country world at all, so I don't really know anything about it. And, most of my circle is all rock people, so I've not even talked to anybody who's gone to it. Kind of forgot he's even doing that there. But, so I can't help you on it. I don't know anything about it at all.
Okay. How about any tips for the Sphere in general, or just do you know of any other shows, maybe like rock shows that are playing this weekend in Vegas? Maybe we could catch. We're there from Friday to Tuesday.
Off the top of my head, no. But when you get here, if you go into a restaurant or a bar, a lot of them have this magazine called Las Vegas Weekly. And it's a weekly free magazine that has all the ads for all the events and concerts. So if you can find one of them when you get to town, you can go through it and you can check. And then there's various clubs and venues that might be doing some rock shows. There's rock shows at the Golden Nugget downtown. They'll do rock shows at a place called Fremont Country Club. They'll do rock clubs in a club called Tuscany here. So it just depends. I don't know anything off the top of my head, but you'd have to look around when you get here.
Anything off the top of your head? I know you're not a travel agent. You're a rock guy, so I apologize for that. But like anything off the top of your head to beat the heat or something cool to do? Because like I said, it's been 27 years since I've been there, so I'm sure so much has changed.
Oh yeah, well, it changes every month. I mean, it's crazy what goes on here, the change. But yeah, you're going to be blown away at all the things that have changed. No question about that, Keith. Keith, I'll tell you, man. So, yeah, it is hot, but and thanks, Keith. I'll try to give you a little more here off the air and grab a couple more calls. I have absolutely become the concierge for Las Vegas with my audience. which I'm fine with, but because so many people come here, and some like Keith haven't been here in a long time, but I'm fine with it. It's just funny though, because I get emails like from listeners too, like, "Hey Eddie, where do I go to eat, or where do I go for this, or what should I do? Where should I stay? What should I stay away from?" I'm happy to help. They should put me on the travel board, or the board of commerce, or whatever. What do they call it? Get a position here with the town. So yeah, but look, so much is made about the heat in Vegas, and we just had Ellefson on. He's in Arizona, and yes, it's hot. But I got to be honest with you, again, for some people, they're really fatigued by it. It does not bother me because it is dry, and there's a huge difference between dry heat and humidity. And when you go in and out of these casinos or restaurants, they're cranking AC that you almost feel good when you initially go outside. So are you going to run a marathon in it? No. But, you go out at night, the sun goes in, everything changes. That's great. And, you do want indoor activities. There's a ton of them here. There's a year-round giant Universal Studios haunted house. There's an area called Area 15. There's, of course, every casino in the world is indoors. There's the Sphere. They run movies in there. There's a pinball museum I like going to if you love pinball. So all kinds of stuff. The Mob Museum, which I've not been to. The Punk Rock Museum, which I've not been to yet. So if you're looking for things not gambling related, there's plenty of that. So have a look and enjoy the city. And enjoy Kenny Chesney. I couldn't tell you anything about Kenny Chesney. Sorry about that. And as far as a tip for going to the Sphere, my recommendation for people, and this is for people coming in, going to Metallica later this year and all of that, try to stay off the floor so you have a permanent seat so you can have that bass experience, because the permanent seats have the bass built in. Make sure you're not under one of the overhangs. And I think you want to be about halfway up in the middle, ideally, in terms of seating. But look, anywhere you go in there, it's going to be an experience in terms of the sound and the video. And try to get in there at least an hour before your show starts. When you go in there, you feel like you're going in Space Mountain. There's some stuff in the lobby. There's holograms and stuff, things you can take a look around and check out as well. Here's Kevin in Boston. What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, what's going on, Eddie? I'm going to Vegas in a couple of weeks. I was wondering if you could recommend the best burger. No, I'm joking.
I could, actually, but...
yeah. So, first time, long time. Heavy metal's not my number one genre, but I love the show. I grew up listening to hip-hop and R&B, but I've got my favorite heavy metal bands, favorite power ballads and whatnot. So the question I wanted to ask is, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could see Run DMC after their heyday at like a college gymnasium, which I have seen them there. Bret Michaels at a small nightclub that holds like 300, 400 people, which I've seen him at a small nightclub, local in Boston. But then all of a sudden, fast forwarded to the late, 2000s, 2010, 2015 to 2026. Now Bret Michaels in a stadium, these R&B hip hop bands that were big in the 80s, late 90s, early 2000s, you would see them at small venues, but now you can see them at huge stadiums. Like I saw Run DMC at Yankee Stadium, headline in the 50th anniversary of hip hop. So what's your take on that, where these huge groups from the 80s and 90s, from the 80s, the late 90s, they weren't really selling tickets, but now it's back. Like everything we loved in the 80s, look at even like Cyndi Lauper, started a small nightclub 15 years ago, and now she had this huge tour. Like, what's your take on that? Like, all these bands, no matter the genre, are bigger than ever now.
Well, I don't agree. Respectfully. I think there is a lot of smoke and mirrors in what you're saying. And what I mean by that is, to say bigger than ever, not accurate at all. I mean, none of them are even close to what they were back in the day. But what has happened, Kevin, is that certainly, okay, so we've talked about this before in terms of like the hit that so many of these bands took, especially in the rock world when the 90s rolled around. So have many of those bands recovered to some degree in terms of their draw from that? Yes, because in the mid 90s, early 90s through into the early 2000s, I mean, they literally couldn't get a gig. You know, they were playing, if they were playing at all, they're playing tiny places. What's happened since is, yes, some of that bias and some of that has certainly dissipated. So it's gotten better. There's no question. But to say they're bigger than ever, not even close. Some of them are still very much on the rebuild. And when you say you've seen somebody like Bret Michaels in a stadium, well, you've never, first of all, if Bret Michaels is in a stadium, it's with Poison, and it's
correct. Yeah,
it's fourth build, right?
Yeah,
to Motley, it's third build to Motley Crue and Def Leppard. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like Bret is headlining a big stadium to 60,000 people. It's not even close. So that's why you have to really.
Yeah, but you agree, like, what's big from the 80s and 90s? I'm sorry, from the 80s weren't as popular in the 90s, but now they're bigger than they were in the 90s.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because and when you're talking about rock, those bands got destroyed because of the change when the grunge thing happened. So there's that. But the other thing that happened is the fact that that music and the people who grew up with, say, using the 80s as an example, and thank you, Kevin, those people are now in their 50s, maybe even early 60s. So it has become their classic rock. And when you reach that age, you kind of reach for and listen to things that take you back to the music you grew up with. And if you have the money and still the desire to leave the house, you can now go out and see these people play live and have a nostalgia trip. So that's what's happened. And yeah, some of these artists are doing better than they certainly did 20 years ago. But to say whoever it is bigger than they've ever been is just not even close to accurate. Some people want you to believe that, but it's just simply not true. You know, he mentioned Run DMC. I saw him headline a stadium. He also threw in it was a festival for the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Well, you know what? If you're doing a festival with 50 bands on it for 50 years of a genre of music, and it's in New York, and in this case it's on hip hop, then yeah, it makes sense that Run DMC would be the headliner. But I don't think you would see Run DMC as the only act selling out Yankee Stadium. Not going to happen. So you see what I mean by smoke and mirrors? A lot of these, when you look at these bands and they're on festivals or even in amphitheaters or they're in big settings, they're on there as part of 100 bands on a weekend. Or they're on there as part of a special event. It's not just about them. It is rarefied air to be a band that can go into a stadium with no known opening act, no other main acts, and to sell it out. I mean, even look at this run Guns N' Roses are about to do in America. I mean, here in Vegas, they've got the Black Crowes opening for them. The Black Crowes just did their own tour doing amphitheaters, and they're the opening act. So even Guns N' Roses is looking like needs some name help. There's very, very few bands that, at least in the rock world, that are doing that kind of business. You know, Foo Fighters come to mind. You know, AC/DC has the Pretty Reckless opening. So that, you know, they're really kind of carrying that. So you see what I'm saying? Not even close to the same business. Better than 20 years or so ago? 100%. The same? No. But a lot of them are still making a great living. But a lot of it's nostalgia, and a lot of it is, you know, just being looked at and perceived differently. And some of that, you know, ridiculous bias that was put on them from the 80s is dissipated. And when you talk about, he was saying he's not a big not a metal guy. I mean, sure, we do a lot of hard rock on here, but we just talked about Wham. I just had Brian Setzer on. I just had John Taylor from Duran Duran on. I just had Phil Collins on. So we have a wide net of rock. We're certainly, no doubt, our core is hard rock, but one thing we've gotten really good about is getting a little wider and a little more open to other things, which is fun, from time to time. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks to David Ellefson for joining me today. Tomorrow, free-for-all action, tons of phone time, and Carl Bell of the band Fuel and the world premiere of the first new Fuel song in ages on tomorrow's show. We'll catch you then.